Welcome back to r/Entitled People, where we read stories about entitled people from our own subreddit, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one was posted by user Stacy Rose on our own subreddit and is titled "New Entitled Neighbors Wants My Uncle to Plow for Them." So my uncle has a plow on his truck and likes to help out neighbors and friends. Some will pay him and some will offer him hot coffee or cocoa to warm up. We recently had a huge snowstorm with snow coming almost up to my hips when I went outside to shovel off the porch. I saw my uncle plowing out my driveway and waved hello to him and told him to come inside when he was done. Now I have a new neighbor that lives about 2 doors down from me. This woman and her husband are able-bodied who can shovel their own small driveway or walkway. They saw me shoveling and they saw my uncle plowing my driveway, but I thought nothing of it. My uncle finished my driveway and came inside, where I gave him some coffee and a hot open-faced turkey sandwich with gravy, his favorite by the way, and we were visiting a while. I was thanking him for plowing out my driveway and telling him he did not have to, but he told me that he will always help me out because I always help him and my aunt out, plus we are family. We were just sitting in my living room chatting when there was a loud bang on my door. I get up to answer my door and standing there was my neighbors from 2 doors down, looking very upset. We will call them entitled man and entitled woman. I just looked at them and said, "Can I help you?" The entitled woman scowled at me and said, "You can stop hogging the plow, man." The entitled man started to take a step in my house, but I blocked his path and he glared at me saying, "Move." I just looked at them both and said, "This is my house and I did not give you permission to enter." The entitled woman did this little snort type laugh thingy that made her sound a little piggish, and the entitled man simply growled and said, "I said move." I just looked at him blocking my door, saying, "My house, leave now." This man actually pushed me out of the way and stormed inside my house. His stupid wife followed him inside and stomped up to my uncle. The entitled man glared at my uncle and said, "Your job here is done. Get your ass back out there and finish your job. Our driveway needs plowing." My uncle just laughed at them both and raised his eyebrows, saying, "My job?" The entitled woman said, "Are you sleeping with this stupid little girl?" Well, my uncle lost his temper. He got up and towered above the man and woman and said loudly, "What did you call my niece?" They looked scared and took a step back, then he bellowed, "Get out of my niece's house right now! You are trespassing!" But they did not budge. I just smiled, showing my uncle my phone. I had called the police and said, "Don't worry uncle, I have it covered." These two morons started arguing some more with my uncle about him not doing his job and other crap. They kept yelling and my uncle was yelling at them to get out of my house. I just stood at the doorway waiting for the police to show up because the dispatcher said they were on their way. About 7 minutes passed and the police showed up, but these two entitled jerks did not notice because they were still arguing with my uncle in my house. I opened the door to them and told them that these two people shoved their way into my home and started arguing with my uncle who's here visiting me. The entitled woman noticed the police and started whining, saying, "Officers, this girl won't let this plowman finish his job. He's supposed to plow our driveway. We are paying him good money and he's sleeping around with this girl." The first officer looked at her and said, "Is that so? It's my understanding that this man is this girl's uncle and you pushed your way into her home without her permission. So what story is it? Hers or yours?" The entitled man just scowled again and said, "Ours, of course. We were invited over." I laughed at this and said, "I don't even know you two. I just met you both tonight when you knocked on my door demanding that my uncle finish his job, which by the way is not his job. He just came here to help me out. He does not get paid to plow people's driveways. He helps out those in need and only when they are nice to him, unlike the two of you. I told you both you did not have permission to enter my home and you, sir, pushed me aside and entered my home even after I told you to leave. And you, ma'am, just followed him inside and started yelling at my uncle in my home." The entitled woman said in a shaky voice, "Officer, she's lying." The second officer said, "I don't think so. We had another call from the man across the street stating he saw you both shove your way inside this young woman's house. Now we are gonna do this one of two ways. You both leave now, or we will trespass you both and take you out in cuffs. Which shall it be? I took this time to say, officers, I would like to file a complaint. Because that man did push his way in and my shoulder is hurting where he shoved me against my door. The entitled man laughed and said,
I did not even push you that hard.
The first officer picked up what he said and raised one eyebrow and said, so you admit to shoving her? The second officer looked at him and said, sir, you just said she was lying, and now you're saying you did push her. I think we will be taking the second option. You both will be trespassed, and yes, you will be arrested. Now, depending on the both of you, we can do this quickly and have you both come back home within the hour, or we can do this the hard way. The choice is yours. Well, the entitled woman and man both looked at each other, then the woman spoke up and said,
but that plowman did not finish his job.
My uncle simply said, I do not get paid to plow driveways and I would have been glad to help you both if you would have asked nicely. But you both chose to bully your way into my niece's home and start yelling at me and calling her names. I won't be helping you out after this. You will just have to shovel out your driveway the old-fashioned way or hire someone, but it won't be me. The entitled man started to say something, but the first officer told him to not say a word, that they had heard enough, and ordered both him and his wife to exit my house. The second officer took a statement from me and my uncle and told us to have a pleasant evening. We watched out the window, seeing them both argue with the police officers, then get arrested. Both my uncle and I laughed when we watched the man try to run with his hands cuffed behind his back, only to slip on the icy ground and fall flat on his ass. The officer simply helped him up and put him in the back of their car with his wife. They closed the door and went to my neighbor across the street, I think to get a statement from him too. I stepped outside to wave at my neighbor and he waved back with a huge smile on his face. After my uncle finished visiting me, he made a point to go and plow out my neighbor across the street, then head home to my aunt. He was laughing when he left, so I know he's gonna tell my aunt what happened. I have no idea when those two entitled jerks will be home, but my neighbor across the street says he knows their landlord and is gonna give her a call about their actions. He also told me to thank my uncle for him when I see him again, and I told him I will. Anyways, that's what happened this crazy evening, and now I am just resting, drinking some hot cocoa and watching TV. Have any of you dealt with entitled neighbors, and if so, what happened? Well, thank you very much for posting this story, Stacy. That was a delicious combination of I don't work here lady, entitled people and neighbors from hell. And once again to the people in the comments, if you have ever dealt with entitled neighbors, please let us know what happened. The next one is titled, A Young Karen Hated Me for No Reason and Tried to Get Me Fired Twice. So until recently, I worked at a food hall for a major college in the state I lived in. I recently left that job on very good terms because I was trying to move in with my boyfriend. I mentioned him in a previous story about a parking space. Now, the job was a food server and cleaning job, which I did for 2 years. I loved my job. I also got along really well with all my coworkers. Now, I worked with a lot of immigrants who are working there as well. They were all very nice. This company also helped work with people who were disabled, since I got the job through my local disability department due to my own autism. Things had been going well until one day this younger transfer part-time worker was transferred in. I will just call her D. Now D was a very young worker since she was still a teenager. Now let me explain how each department worked. As a food server, you help all the other departments with stocking up dishes, utensils and cups as they need. Then in dish room, you work with all your co-workers to make sure everything is clean. Now, few people know how to clean and disengage the dish machine. We had no manager or lead, so we all had to work together. So I would often stay after nights to clean the machine and the floors. We had to mop them. Me and my other co-workers know this. Most of my co-workers are older men. I had 3 instances that happened on the first week that D showed her very entitled attitude. Now I am spraying down the machine and we have to be done by 10:30 p.m. so I asked D to go ahead and mop the floors. She told me to shut the F up. I paused. I just said you can start.
Shut the hell up, you're not the boss of me.
I know I'm not, but we are all helping one another. I'm just asking you to help coworker, who's old and has a bad knee.
Stop being bossy.
She then stormed away. 2 days later, I'm cleaning out the main sink, D walks past me, I don't see one of the 3 scrapers we have and need one to get all the food and gunk out. Hey D, do you know? She shoves her effing hand at me. She shoves it in my face. I bite back my anger. Few days after that, I am on my 30-minute break and D runs up to me.
I reported you to the manager. You're in trouble.
D grinned. Wait, what? Why the F would you do that? I growled, standing up.
Because you act like you're the boss of me, you're gonna be fired. Haha.
D left and ran off. I rushed to the AM manager and explained my side of what happened. AM manager assured me I was not in any kind of trouble since the accusations were far-fetched, but me and D were forced to sit down for a mediation. After that, I rarely talked to D. She did not speak to me other than to sneer and growl at me, until my co-workers from Dish asked me about what D did to me. 3 of them then admitted that D had accused them of worse offenses and they got in trouble. Despite these things did not happen and there was no proof. There are cameras everywhere, even in Dish room. I was angry. I knew the 3 guys that were accused. 2 were immigrants that did not know much English and just did their jobs and went home. They did not even shake hands out of fear they did something wrong. The other was a co-worker that was close to retirement and did not want to lose his job. I went to the managers and explained that D lied and there was proof that nothing happened. The guys gave me dates the incidents happened. They looked back for each one. The first showed co-worker was trading out the trash cans because the former was full and accidentally bumping D with a can. She's seen shouting at him angrily, then storming off. The second was retiree who does the grabbing of clean dishes and putting them away. He asked D to take out the full dish holder in the hallway. She is seen stomping her feet and storms off. The third one showed D arguing with the third co-worker who does not know English and just yells back at her in his native tongue. D shoves him and leaves the room. Now I have sadly left after this revelation, but according to my friend who still works there, my co-workers were pardoned and D is kept an eye on closely. She cannot be fired, but she's on extremely thin ice. I am leaving for a new job and a new life. I pray to never meet another spoiled D again. Guys, have you ever been in a situation where a coworker made up lies in order to get you fired? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled The Making of Entitled Editor in Chief. I work in a startup that among other things has websites who help selling cars and have many stories, especially about this guy. He is entitled as F and combines that lovely trait with laziness and ignorance. And it is my fault we hired him. A little background, I work in a startup focused on content marketing. There I helped build and hire the team. I was the second employee ever and started out as an editor myself, but as happens in startups, soon took on other responsibilities like managing our online campaigns and becoming product owner for our website. When this story begins, I still was head of editorial and as such was looking for a new editor, which is him. EEC, Entitled Editor in Chief. He was humble, nice, and our version of the labor office even paid half of his salary for an entire year. Made our CEO happy, made me happy. But he also came relatively untrained. University degree in political science, some minor writing experience included working for some student radio. That's it. No online writing or marketing knowledge, no copywriting skills, nothing. And tech illiterate to boot. So I began to train him basics of online writing and copywriting as well as content marketing, which was and still is our main business. After a few months, he, my very nice CEO, and myself sat down for a feedback meeting and I gave what was good feedback. He was coming along nicely as a junior editor, yet had still no grasp of the workings of what we were doing. That is when he asked to become editor-in-chief, the post I basically was holding and for which I was still actively searching a replacement for myself. And very nice CEO knew that and gave him the post. At this point I shrugged, thanked the powers that are for a lessening of my workload and began to transfer my responsibilities to him. And so it began. Mind you, I was still officially head of editorial, and in my other role as manager of that specific office, I was still his boss anyway. So I explained our strategy to him and our end goal. Then I gave him my content plans and started to distance myself from the editorial team, taking an Overwatch position. And he started taking smoking breaks, long ones, 30+ minutes. When I needed something fast, he would go out and smoke, take long toilet breaks, or simply go outside and ring up his friends for literally hours. When sitting at his desk, he loudly chatted with his co-workers around him or made private phone calls. Everything I asked him to do, he would either not do or give to another editor without a briefing or anything. He would use the morning stand-up to tell jokes, then go out and smoke, or phone, or take a very long dump. He then began to proofread everything, something which had been done before on a rotation, and he used that not to improve the content, but to berate the respective authors. Then gave it back to them and schooled them in his way of writing all in order to boost his ego. Reminder, he himself was a mediocre writer and made many mistakes while not getting what we wanted to achieve with the content. So I started to proofread everything again, and since I had more and more to do, I did that in the evenings. Or rather nights, because I spent much of my free time then taking care of the house my wife and I were building, and more importantly, had another time-consuming factor in my life back then. My daughter, who then still was a baby. So while I worked more and more and started paying the price for it, he started behaving more and more like some sort of super boss while smoking, phoning, watching YouTube and taking long breaks in the bathroom. I talked to entitled editor-in-chief, I argued with him, I started to pull rank, nothing. He did not work, and if he did, he was so slow and so lazy about it all, I could chuck most of it in the bin. Then, nice CEO changed the course of the company, we had a new partner and planned a new content strategy. Not to go into details, but it was focused more on the brands in our business and on high quality tests rather than on the more fun content we did before. I, as still head of editorial, tried to get EEC, entitled editor-in-chief, to implement the strategy. He told me he did not like it, told me that his vision was so much greater and that we would be famous soon. Yes, famous as a content marketing business. Well, his vision was basically making videos of fast cars, posting pictures of fast cars. So, no strategy at all. At that point, I asked my boss, nice CEO from above, to intervene. He did not, except for reiterating that he wanted the new strategy, which, by the way, was backed by numbers, statistics, and we even had a consultant over to work out the concept. So I did the planning, laid the technical groundwork, and started the content rollout. After that, I went on holiday. Who was my replacement? Of course, EEC. The moment I was out of the door, he told editorial that we would not do anything, that the plan was stupid and that we would post pictures of cars and write tiny stories with it. He then went on destroying much of what we had done in the 2 weeks I was away. I again went to my boss after chewing him out, and nice CEO did nothing. Safe tell me that EEC was a father of 2 and he could hardly fire him. Really? It went on like that. I basically had to work around him while he took breaks and bad-mouthed me at every turn. That went on for many months, over a year. I did not get him to work, disciplined or fired. He made my life and the life of our editors harder, and I myself ended up with a genuine burnout. Then, one day, nice CEO comes in. With a defeated face he tells me that EEC has quit, and seems genuinely sad about it. Now, a few years later, we are successful and starting to attract real investors. All of a sudden, nice CEO hires EEC, who lost his new job again. EEC comes back and on his first day claims that all we did and all of our success is basically the result of his genius. That we were just caretakers, it only got worse from there. To be honest, I cannot imagine working in such a company. Have you guys ever worked together with such an entitled person? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much. Family entitled to dead man's possessions. I won't give away pertinent details to the story, here's the background I can provide. I'm sorry in advance, it might be quite a bit of background. Also, I may be a bit scatterbrained, so some info might be a little all over the place. Just about 2 years ago, my uncle, married into my family, passed away extremely suddenly. While he left everything to my aunt, it still put a burden on her because of all of his possessions plus clients through his work needed issues to be resolved. This is only relevant to the fact that my aunt now was the sole proprietor of all of my uncle's possessions, all of them. My uncle was a huge guitar enthusiast and was part of a band. He had many guitars and memorabilia he obtained over multiple decades. This includes, but is not limited to, signed articles of clothing, records and tapes, as well as signed instrumental items from a couple of named bands that he truly loved. Will not mention these bands. My cousin, let's call him Ted, is also a very avid fan of this band. Not sure why he is, but this is an important detail for later. About a month ago, my aunt was cleaning out the house that they had lived in for nearly a decade, as she was downsizing significantly and could not bring all of their belongings with them. So she started to ask some of her direct family members if they wanted some of the stuff. One side of my family took a whole bunch of furniture, my mother and father took some pictures, and I was given the same, as well as other small various items. One of the things I was gifted was framed gold record, tape and CD from said band that my cousin loved, still do not understand why, as I don't know he was a huge rock person until my uncle had died. This is where things start to get a little dicey. I was under the impression that my aunt had asked Ted about this gold record, as I already knew that he was getting a lot of the memorabilia from this band as it was. So my aunt asks me if I want it, I say yes, and I am told I can do what I want with it. Before taking all of these items home with me, my family and I were helping her move all of my aunt's belongings to her new house. During this move, Ted's sister, we will call her Amber, noticed the record sitting in a corner with what she knew would be the items going home with me. She asked my aunt,
"Hey, I noticed that gold record is sitting in the corner with OP's stuff. Is that not going to Ted?"
My aunt politely replied, "I told OP he can do whatever he wants with it. He can hang it up in his room if he really wants to." And I guess it was left at that for the time being. Then Amber and Ted's mother, entitled aunt/EA, brings it up to my aunt, saying that it should have gone to Ted for his birthday rather than for me to keep. My aunt only repeated to her what she told Amber. Something to note here is that EA loves to tend to Ted's every whim and has even offered for my aunt to pay for a very expensive covert without her voluntarily offering it. As I was coming home, my parents and I noticed a box missing. No big deal, the box ended up being at my aunt's new house. However, in all of the confusion in trying to find the box, I call EA to ask if she has it. She informs me that she does not, however, does mention that she noticed that I brought home the gold record and it may be a mistake. I tell her that aunt gave it to me and I would be hanging it up in my room sometime in the future. I contact my aunt about what she had asked me and tells me that EA also contacted her, saying something close to,
"I thought OP was supposed to give the record to Ted for his birthday. I must be mistaken, but can you just clarify?"
EA has been acting very polite during this, but I know this will become an issue moving forward. Like I said, it is ongoing and I will try to update as things start to unfold. So I guess I should ask this question here: is EA right to think that because my cousin has taken a liking to the same band that my uncle adored for decades and wants to give her child whatever my aunt offers to give away that relates to the band? Or am I the a-hole in thinking that I don't need to give it to my cousin? Please let us know in the comments what you think about the situation, but in my opinion, your aunt and cousin sound extremely entitled, so I don't think you need to give it to them. And unfortunately guys, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow. Thank you for watching.